Welcome back to the Nullified Take, where we've got the TNT takes for you on Australian Survivor, Blood vs. Water. That's right, we're doing some off-season content right here on the channel, and it starts today. The first topic that I want to cover in this off-season content for Australian Survivor will be who are the top 5 players from Australian Survivor Blood vs. Water that I would like to see return for one more time. We're going to dive into a couple of different topics for each one of these players. We're going to talk about their legacy after the season, their potential of coming back. Like, would we even want to see these players come back and play again, or would the producers want to see them come back and play for another round in Australian Survivor? We're also going to talk about how do I think they would fit into a returnee season, and then lastly, what theme would best suit them if they were to return. We know that Survivor has got some crazy fun themes out there that they normally throw at returnee players, and which one of those themes would best fit these players if they were to return? So let's start off with one of the very obvious ones for a returnee season. We're talking about Jordie the Joker from Australian Survivor Blood vs. Water. Where is Jordie's legacy after the season? Well, we know he's a battler. He's someone who's had to fight his way from the bottom and almost made it all the way to the end here. And I think that if he did get into that final tribal somehow, he would have had a case to be made in regards to his ability to fight from the bottom, fight his way back from purgatory, and also he won a whopping 3 immunity challenges in a season that was stacked with challenge beasts. We're talking Jordie himself, obviously, going up against Shay, Josh, Mark, Khan, who also did really well prior to being voted out of the game. I would really like to see the Joker, Jordie, get this shot to come back and once again prove why he is such a great challenge beast out there. And I think that his social read on the game was just that little bit off, and that he wanted to come in here as a big fan of the game. He wanted to make big moves, betray his main alliance, but he didn't. He underestimated how close that relationship between Mark and Josh really were out there, and that Mark and Josh kind of were the same person in a lot of ways in how they saw the game. They wanted stability, and they didn't want a Joker-like character in this season to come in there and muddy the waters in regards to a very easy ride to the end. So he is seen as a challenge threat, having won all those immunities. So when he comes back, I do think that people will look at him as a threat if he did get to the merge. Now, what is Jordie's potential in actually coming back on a show such as Australian Survivor? We know he's a good TV character and a great narrator. He really carried a lot of the show towards the merge part of this game, and I think that if he wasn't there, we would have been in for an even more straightforward and predictable season. He added an element of surprise and an element of chaos to the game, which I think a lot of casual viewers would have really enjoyed. And I'm sure there was a lot of people that were very upset when Jordie was ultimately voted out of the game, and they wanted the underdog to go all the way to the end. He will play hard and fast from the beginning, so I think that that is something that producers would love if Jordie was ever to come back and play on the show, and they would rather have someone that makes big moves, go home early, than someone that's going to sit there on a returnee season and add 0 value. He is a challenge threat, so some people may want to vote him out before he gets to the merge, so I don't know how that's going to go, but overall I think that he would be a lock with the producers and the casual fans, and that he would definitely get that call if they were going to do another returnee season, say season 10. Now, what theme would best fit him? I think that a Heroes versus Villains theme would be something that would work really well for him. I would imagine he's a villain, and he would be on the villain tribe, as the Joker is a villain himself within DC, and I also wouldn't mind seeing him on a second chance season, even though I would really like to put the Heroes versus Villains theme out there, and you will see a trend with some of the players that I'm going to mention here. I think there's a lot of them that could fit into either a Heroes or Villains tribe out there. Now, let's get into the second player here, and I always like to throw a couple of wildcards into any of my top 5s, and this is going to be no different here. I am going to nominate Amy, Khan's little sister, as someone that I would like to see come back and play again. What would be their current legacy in the game today? Well, she made some early waves in her season, trying to build an alliance, and she went against Sophie and the boys, and I do think that her jumping on board with obviously a few other people here like Sandra and also Sam and Jesse, and then also the people that she was aligned with, to go against Sophie was a great move, because if that alliance manifested into something bigger, I do think Sophie could have had a lot of capital and could have potentially become a very big threat with those boys later in the game. And Amy not being one of the biggest and most physical girls out there, I think she saw the writing on the wall, because it would have been, let's vote out what they perceive to be weaklings out there and keep the strong boys and the strong girls in the game, which could have been a bit of a threat to her. She then also wanted to make a very big move in the season against the Queen herself. She wanted to take Sandra out of the game when they got to the tribe swap, but she ultimately went against someone that I think wanted to work with her quite deep in the game, Jordie, as well. So maybe a little bit of a misread there, and because she's that younger player, she wanted to make a lot of moves similar to like a Jessie and a Jordie, but she did get found out, and I do believe that the tribe swap did not help her case here this season, and ultimately helped her see the door a lot sooner than what I would have liked to have seen her go out of this game. She seems to be a game player. She seems to have a really good strategic mind for the game as well. So I don't know how big of a fan she was the first time that she went out there to play this game, but I would love to see Amy get another shot, and I think she would deliver. So producers, if you're listening to this, give Amy the call. I want to see her back on the screen. Now, what is her potential of coming back and actually playing another season? Well, this season saw 2 early evictees in both Mark and Sam come back, so you could never really count anybody out of a returnee season. I think she would be underestimated if she did get that call to come back, because a lot of players may have forgotten about her because she never really made the merge and didn't have an opportunity to pull off too many big moves. But I do think she could easily sit back, let other bigger players take the heat, while she becomes the second or third in charge and make bigger moves come the merge time. It does suit that type of gameplay in Australia, so I think she could be underestimated, and I think she could be very dangerous. Now, what would be the theme that would best suit Amy if she did return to the game? Well, South Africa's got an upcoming season that is going to be pre-mergers versus mergers, and the theme is called Return of the Outcasts. I think a theme like that, where you get some pre-merge contestants going up against merge contestants, would be the perfect theme to get Amy back on the show. Ultimately, I'd like to say any theme would be good to get her back. Second chances, throw it out there. You know, I'd love to see Amy come back and play the game. Now, player number 3, Sam the Thief. Sam, if you're listening to this, apologies, but I love that nickname. The Thief versus the Joker would be an amazing season to see. I would actually want to see a season with both these two being captains of their opposing tribes, like we had with Russell Hans and Boston Rob going head to head after heroes versus villains. But I think the likelihood of that is probably not too big. Now, what is Sam's legacy currently in Australian Survivor? Well, let's be honest, she stole the kid's idol, and that is never going to be forgotten in the mythos of Australian Survivor. She made probably the biggest move that we've seen in taking that idol away from Jessie, and ultimately took all the power and gave that to herself and Mark in the game. She was loyal to her alliance prior to the merge, and she made a lot of big moves with Jessie here early on, taking a lot of players out. And I do think that if Mark wasn't there, she would have stayed true to that alliance and would have taken that alliance very deep into the game, to where it probably would have been herself, Jessie, and Khan, or whoever else was close to her at that time, that ultimately would have sat at the end. But obviously she played this game not on her own, and she had to play with her husband Mark. So some people may remember her as someone that caved into Mark's demands in regards to which way they should go for their alliance that they wanted to take throughout the game. I do think that she will be seen as a strategist and someone that's got a lot of urgency to her, so she can make big plays and move on those big plays. There's a lot of players that have got great ideas in their head, but never really manifest that into anything when they're out there on the island. And I think that in her case, she's someone that can actually think it and then go out there and achieve it, which is a very subtle skill to have. She does come across on the TV show as someone that can be a little bit paranoid and get frazzled very easily. I don't know if the edit amped that up, but I think overall people will be wary of Sam if she came back. She would really have to have a game plan in place as to how she's going to minimize that threat. Because let's be honest, if she could steal her closest allies' idol in this game, would you really want to be her closest ally in the returning game? I don't know. It'll be an interesting one to see. Now, do I think she gets the call from the producers? How do I think she returns for another season? I think the producers, similar to how they've got some other people's name already in their list of players that they want back, I do see Sam coming back. Just based on that move, based on the legacy that she's built here this season, she's getting the call to come back and play another season. In a lot of ways, she may be the Boston Rob to Mark's Amber this season, and she could be the person who comes back to play even more often than Mark, but I don't know if she wants to, and that's the interesting thing here. Sam had a really tough time with the fans this season, so I could easily see her say, listen, this is too much heat for me, I don't appreciate it, I just want to go back and live my normal life. We did get that $500,000 as a couple, and we can now move on from the game. I hope that's not the case. You know, Sam is entitled to have a couple of seasons and go and rest, but please, Sam, come back and play another game. I want to see it happen. What theme do I think would best suit Sam? Well, for me, it has to be heroes versus villains, and she would be in that villains tribe with Jordie if she was ever to return to the game. All right, let's get into it. Player number 4, Josh the Two-Face. I want to see Josh come back, and by the way, that nickname Two-Face does not really suit Josh at all. I did not see him as a villain this season at all, and we'll talk about that in their legacy. So I feel like Josh was someone this season that was extremely under-edited, probably the best player out there. I could pick up between how players were talking to the camera and approaching him in regards to moves that they were never going to move anywhere unless Josh was comfortable with that. All those times that people wanted to go against Sam and Mark, he was the main person who stopped them, which showed that obviously Mark chose well in the alliance that he wanted to go with, which was his main argument to Sam. Let's go with these guys. They're stable. They'll work with us. But Josh was the one that was gatekeeping them from moving on and the real decision maker at the end of the day. I do think that he was severely under-edited, that didn't show us the strategy behind how he played. He clearly was a beast at challenges, winning 3 immunities, one of the best this season, and he just seemed like a super likable guy. So for me, the Two-Face nickname as a villain, I don't know if I see him that way. I think he's a very stand-up, reliable guy, someone that I have nicknamed Mark 2.0, and I think he could be dangerous if he was ever to return to the game because he was so severely under-edited. Now, how do I think he would go, and would the producers want him to come back? I don't know if the producers want him to come back, but I do feel like he should come back. I could see him, like I said, as this hero, somebody that's like almost the Colby Donaldson if he was to return to a Heroes versus Villains season as a hero. And also, I think that there's a lot to his game, a lot of depth we didn't see. The producers missed the mark here where they could have made him to be the dummy winner for the season, and we would have been on the edge of our seats, I believe, until the final 4, and none of us would have thought Mark's got this in the bag. So I don't know if they're going to go that way, if they're going to bring him back, but I'm really hoping that the producers look at him and say, we've got a great player here, someone we could definitely bring back in a couple of different themes. And what are those themes that I think he could easily fit into in a returning season? Well, I think he's got so much upside to him and that he could fit into a bunch of different themes. For instance, heroes versus villains, hero, fans versus favorites, favorite, second chances. I can see a lot of themes working for someone like a Josh if he was to return to the game. So I really hope that he gets that another opportunity to come back and play if he wanted to play this game again. I enjoyed watching Josh this season. All right, let's get into number 5. Nina the Princess. She came back in with her mother this season as a part of her legacy, and no one gets bigger, no one is bigger than the Queen Sandra Diaz Twine. Well, maybe Tony, but they're on a league of their own at the top of the pecking order when it comes to greatest players of all time. She had a massive target on her because of that, but still somehow managed to find her way into the tribe, really integrate herself well, and get great alliance members around her. We had Mark doing an interview here on this channel this week, and he said that she really didn't have that American mindset to trying to take over the game and make it an American game. She adapted to the Aussies around her, and they've now claimed her as one of her own. And I think that shows the amount of respect her fellow castaways had for her in this game. Now, we know that Jonathan has already said she would return for one more game, so I think that, you know, leaving the way that she left as a medivac, really was sad to see, and I really hope she gets that opportunity to come back to show us what she's worth, because she was great at those early challenges. She was sitting back waiting to make her move at a later stage. She was happy to be Josh's 2IC because she respected the fact that he was running the game before the merge, in her opinion. But I think that if she had the opportunity to pull off some big moves, she would have cut him. I think she had that cutthroatness in her to really play a game that we as fans would have loved to have seen, and I was gutted to see her go. I hope she gets another opportunity to come back. Now, how likely do I think she will come back? Producers, I think they're going to lock her in. I mean, she is royalty. She's part of the DS Twine bloodline. So how can you not bring her back? And I think there's so many themes that she will fit into that we will go into in a little bit. I do think that because she's such a great team player and someone that does well in challenges, she would fit in very well with her tribe before the merge, where people will want to work with her. I think she's easygoing. She's not going to try and take charge from the start. So I very much think if she returns, even with that legacy, even with that name, she makes the merge. And if she makes the merge, anything is possible in this game. I really think we deserve to see her make a merge and see what she would do in game when the game becomes individual. Now, what themes do I think she would fit into? She could easily fit into a Heroes versus Villains season, and I think it would be quite ironic that if she was to play on a Heroes versus Villains season, she would most likely be a hero where her mother was a villain when she played. I don't see Nina as a villain myself. She definitely looked like she would make cutthroat decisions if it came down to it, but she never had the opportunity or the need to do those. I feel like at this stage, she came in as a hero. She definitely got the fallen hero edit when she left Medivac, so I see her in a hero's tribe if she was to come back. I could also very easily see her come into a second chance season since she was so close last time and the injury took her out, so give her another opportunity to play. I think my number one theme that I would love to see Nina come in and play, though, would be an Australian versus US crossover season, and I want her to represent the Australian Survivor team against the United States. I think it would be a lot of fun. Now, those are my 5 players that I would love to see come back. It hurt me not to add a few additional players into this list. Those who listen to my recaps this whole season know that I have a soft spot for Khan, and I could have easily fitted him in there as well, but I'm interested to know who are the 5 players that you would cast in a returnee season from this season, and let me know your thoughts on this video, and leave a like and a comment below, and subscribe for more content for Australian Survivor, Survivor US, and also the challenge that will start very soon. As always, guys, thank you for watching, and catch you next time.